Get full episodes of The Damage Report as a podcast on iTunes and Android, and you can watch the live show every weekday on YouTube TV. Donald Trump is apparently setting his sights on birthright citizenship. It is this concept that if you are born in America, regardless of the legal status of your parents, you are a citizen, and that is derived from the Constitution. Now, he is not a fan of that. Many hardline, far-right people in America don't like that either because they don't like the sort of people that become citizens through it. But there is a little bit of a problem that's standing in their way of actually overturning it. So we're gonna get to that in just a little bit. But first, here is Donald Trump talking about how he thinks he can actually go about getting rid of birthright citizenship.
Some legal scholars believe you can get rid of birthright citizenship without changing the Constitution.
With an executive order.
Exactly.
Right.
Have you thought about that?
Yes.
Tell me more.
It was always told to me that you needed a constitutional amendment.
Right.
Guess
14th
what?
Amendment.
You don't.
You don't.
Number one, you don't need that. Number two,
I mean, that's in dispute.
You could definitely
that's very much in dispute.
Well, you can definitely do it with an act of Congress, but now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order. Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Have you talked about that with counsel?
Yeah, I have.
So where in the process?
It's in the process. It'll happen. With an executive order. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
that's a very interesting question. I didn't think anybody knew that but me. I thought I was the only one. Jonathan,
I've got
I'm
a good guess. Good guess.
Impressed.
Yeah, that was absolutely pathetic and also dangerous. So first of all, the idea that we're the only country in the world that has birthright citizenship is not technically true. We are the only country in the United States that has birthright citizenship, but we have a few neighbors that do it. So Canada and Mexico and Cuba and Venezuela, and basically every single country in our hemisphere has some version of birthright citizenship. So that is an obvious lie that you can only tell if you assume that the people that you want to hear it don't care about the actual truth. Virtually every single country has birthright citizenship in our hemisphere, and especially Mexico, who he loves to say is sort of abusing this, getting rid of people, sending them here to become citizens. They too allow people to get a version of citizenship through this exact process. So he says casually there, number one, you don't need an amendment. You can just do it through an act of Congress, or you can just do it through an executive order. That is, as the reporter pointed out, very much in dispute, but it's not in dispute the way that, like, you know, what's the best cheese is in dispute. It's legally, in terms of the Supreme Court, very much in dispute because the Constitution is not really ambiguous on this issue. The section of the Constitution that has given us birthright citizenship reads like this: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. All persons born. That is very, 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 very clear. These people are born here, and so they become citizens. Now, for a long time, sort of the fringe opinion was, well, if you bring that back up, it says all people born, sure, but it also says under the jurisdiction of. And that's where they think they have a point. They think that they can make the case that those people are not under the jurisdiction because they're not US residents. Well, there's a fun little thought experiment that you can do to make clear how ridiculous this is. So they're saying you don't become a citizen because you're not under the jurisdiction. So you're not, like, US law doesn't matter to you because you're not, like, you can't get those rights. Is there any other example where that makes sense? So if that is the case, if you come in from Mexico and you run someone over with your car and the police try to stop you, just keep on driving. You're not under US jurisdiction, okay? If you wanna rob someone, if you wanna murder someone, these far-right thinkers are saying you don't have to abide by US law. That is obviously ridiculous. It would not apply to anything other than their idea of how to get rid of birthright citizenship. And to make it even more obvious how ridiculous that is, the idea that we just assume, obviously, that every citizen is under the jurisdiction, but non-citizens are not, is made ridiculous by the fact that foreign diplomats are specifically granted exemption from US jurisdiction on most laws. So we understand that you can make those distinctions, and we make it in that case. We did not make it in the case of the kids that are brought in and are born here, because at the time it was obvious that they were intended to be citizens. That has never been seriously challenged in the Supreme Court. They are hoping that now that they've made a very strong conservative majority in the Supreme Court, that they can actually do that. But that is very much an extreme position. And by the way, you might be watching this and think, well, I don't really care about birthright citizenship. It's not an issue that I care about. I don't really care about immigration that much either. What he just demonstrated in that video is more dangerous and goes far beyond just birthright citizenship. Because the concern here is that he is going to attempt to do with a stroke of his pen is basically write an amendment to the Constitution. And if he feels he can do that, and the only justification he needs is to say, first thing I can do it, then where does that actually stop? What else can he do to change the Constitution? If he wants to write an executive order, and if the Republicans that control the Senate and the House don't have a problem with it, the Constitution no longer means anything. The Supreme Court effectively, in their job as overseer of the Constitution and constitutionality, mean nothing. We effectively have a king in America. And I don't think that we're gonna get to that point. I think that we're gonna stop this, and I think to some extent it's a bit of an election ploy. But Donald Trump just made clear there that he thinks that he has utter control over the text of the Constitution going forward. And that seems like kind of a big deal. Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.